happy with what was going on. Probably didn't like certain things. That's the only thing I could think of. If you start something, if you're a part of starting something and then a different element comes in and you don't see yourself fitting into that program and you don't like the way things are going anymore, you leave.
In the mid-90s, everyone thought the Lady of Rage was destined to be one of rap's biggest superstars. They called her the Queen of Death Row Records. But just as her career was about to explode, something went terribly wrong. One album later, her momentum was gone. Her spot on the charts vanished, and whispers began to spread. Was she the victim of a male-dominated industry that never truly gave her a chance? Or was there something darker happening behind the closed doors of Death Row Records? Today, we dive into the forgotten tragedy of the Lady of Rage and uncover who and what really destroyed the career of Death Row's lost queen. Robin Yvette Allen, later known to the world as the Lady of Rage, was born and raised in Farmville, Virginia. From an early age, she showed a deep connection to words and rhythm. By the 6th grade, she had already begun writing rhymes seriously, discovering that music could be both her escape and her identity. Her stage name came about almost by accident during her senior year of high school. One day, while joking and play-fighting with her best friend, he called her the Lady of Rage. Robin instantly loved the sound of it. To her, it carried power, defiance, and a sense of individuality that matched her fiery personality. She later admitted in an interview with Rap Talk that she liked it so much, she claimed it on the spot. She even scrawled it on the wall of the girls' restroom at school, making the name official before her career even began. After graduating, Robin set her sights on a music career and refused to stay still. She moved from Texas to Arkansas to New York, chasing opportunities wherever she thought they might arise. Her persistence paid off when she crossed paths with the hip-hop production team L.A. Posse. They recognized her talent and recorded tracks with her, eventually sharing one of those songs with none other than Dr. Dre. That connection would change the course of her life. Speaking years later to Dub CNN, Rage recalled the surreal moment Dre personally reached out to her. "He called me. He was like, 'Yeah, this is Dr. Dre. I heard you on L.A. Posse's album. I'm getting a new record label together. I wanted to know if you wanted to come to Cali and be down on it.' So I was like, 'Well, how do I know you're Dr. Dre?' And he's like, 'There's only one way to find out.' And he sent me a ticket." Almost overnight, Robin found herself in Los Angeles, stepping into the orbit of Death Row Records, the soon-to-be powerhouse co-founded by Dre, Suge Knight, the D.O.C., and Dick Griffey. At that point, Death Row was still in its infancy, but it was destined to dominate gangster rap and reshape the industry. Despite being on the roster, her career didn't take off immediately. To support herself, she took a job as a security guard at the Hollywood Palladium. Behind the scenes, she kept honing her craft, waiting for the right moment to make her mark. Meanwhile, Dr. Dre was expanding his influence. He produced multiple songs for the 1992 film Deep Cover. Two of those tracks introduced the world to a young Snoop Doggy Dogg, who quickly began attracting attention. A third track, It's On, featured both Snoop and Rage, but to her disappointment, the song didn't make the final cut. Speaking to Vibe magazine later, she admitted she never received a clear answer as to why it was excluded. Still, she remained central to Death Row's plans. Dre was preparing to launch his first solo album since leaving N.W.A., the now legendary The Chronic. Once that dropped, the plan was for Rage to follow with her debut album, Eargasm, with Dre himself overseeing the production. Determined to succeed, Rage left her security job and immersed herself completely in music. She revealed to Rap Talk that she began hustling on the side to stay afloat, all while absorbing everything she could from Dre. He became both her mentor and her teacher, showing her how to craft a song with structure and impact, and how to command the stage with charisma. By then, Death Row had secured a massive 5-year multi-million-dollar distribution deal with Interscope Records. According to the LA Times, Dre personally received $1 million annually to cover overhead and recording expenses for the label's projects. For Rage, this was a turning point. With financial stability behind the label, she no longer had to divide her focus between survival jobs and music. For the first time, all of her energy could be directed toward the career she had dreamed of since childhood. When Dr. Dre released his debut solo album, The Chronic, in December 1992, the project was nothing short of a cultural earthquake. Certified 3 times platinum, it cemented Dre as the architect of a new West Coast sound and reshaped the direction of hip-hop. The Lady of Rage was among the artists featured on the album, her gritty voice and commanding delivery standing out. Yet despite her contributions, the spotlight quickly shifted elsewhere, onto another young artist who had stolen the public's imagination, Snoop Doggy Dogg. Recognizing Snoop's instant popularity, Death Row Records made a decision that would alter Rage's trajectory. Instead of releasing her debut album Eargasm as originally planned, label executives informed her that Snoop's solo project would take precedence. "Snoop's album is gonna be next and your album is gonna be after his," she was told. When Snoop's Doggy Style dropped in November 1993, it was a phenomenon. The record shattered sales records, debuted at #1, and almost single-handedly defined the G-Funk era. For Death Row, it was the perfect storm, a blockbuster success that elevated the label's status. For Rage, however, it was another delay. Despite being featured on Doggy Style, her own album was pushed further down the line. Years later, she admitted in an interview with Dub CNN, "I don't know if it was a female thing, an ego thing, or what, but it just didn't happen when it should have happened." Still determined to make her mark, Rage seized the opportunity when Dre was tapped to assemble a team of artists and producers for the soundtrack to the 1994 basketball drama Above the Rim. Dre's vision was to showcase Death Row's lesser-known talents. Critics were skeptical. The Washington Post even wrote that most of the artists on the soundtrack deserved to remain in obscurity, except for one. That exception was Rage. Her explosive single Afro Puffs became her first solo mainstream hit, peaking at #5 on the Billboard Hot Rap Singles chart and earning her recognition as one of the fiercest female MCs in the game. With the success of Afro Puffs, Rage expected the label to finally give her album the green light, but at a strategy meeting inside Death Row's headquarters, she was shocked to learn that the push was going toward the Dogg Pound's debut instead. To Rage, it felt like another betrayal. She later recalled her frustration, saying she had to raise her voice in the room, "No, my album is coming out next." Her suggestion to Suge Knight was bold. Why not hold a contest in the Source magazine and let fans decide which album should come out first? But her protests fell on deaf ears. According to Rap Talk, Dr. Dre remained firmly in her corner, advocating for her release. Yet disagreements between Dre and Suge over the label's priorities meant that Rage once again found herself pushed aside, watching as others leapt ahead while her debut languished in limbo. By late 1995, the Lady of Rage's hopes for a solo breakthrough were slipping further out of reach. In October of that year, Death Row Records made a move that reshaped the label forever. It signed Tupac Shakur. At the time, Tupac was serving a 4.5-year sentence in Rikers Island on an assault conviction, but Suge Knight saw opportunity. In a headline-making decision, he arranged for a $1.4 million bail payment to secure Tupac's release while he awaited appeal. The moment he walked free, Tupac flew straight to Los Angeles and was immediately thrust into the spotlight as Death Row's new crown jewel. He was charismatic, prolific, and already a cultural force. The label poured its resources into him, and naturally, other artists, including Rage, were pushed even further down the priority list. For Rage, Tupac's arrival wasn't just a professional setback, it also brought personal friction. She later admitted in an interview with Vlad TV that she and Tupac clashed almost from the beginning. Tupac was uncompromising in his beliefs, passionate to the point of volatility and eager to rally the entire label around his vision of loyalty and defiance. Rage, on the other hand, wasn't interested in being pulled into battles she didn't believe in, particularly the escalating East Coast-West Coast feud that was consuming hip-hop at the time. Their differences created tension, and although they shared the same label, they rarely shared common ground. While all eyes were on Tupac, Rage tried to stay visible. In 1995, Death Row released the Dogg Pound's debut album, Dog Food, and Rage was featured on the track Do What I Feel. Her presence on the record was proof of her talent, but being a supporting voice wasn't what she wanted. She longed to step out from the shadow of collaborations and prove she could carry an album on her own. Then came another blow. In February 1996, Tupac dropped his double album All Eyes on Me, which became an instant classic and has since been certified diamond. It dominated radio, the charts, and the culture. For Death Row, it was a triumph. For Rage, it meant yet another delay. And when she was finally told that her project would move forward, it turned out to be at the worst possible time. In September 1996, Tupac was murdered in a Las Vegas drive-by shooting, sending shockwaves through the music industry. Almost simultaneously, Suge Knight was sentenced to prison for a probation violation. Dr. Dre abruptly left Death Row to form Aftermath Entertainment, and Snoop Dogg began planning his own exit. The label that once promised Rage her moment in the sun was collapsing from within. In interviews with Dub CNN, Rage explained that when Dre walked away, he took the heart of her debut with him. Eargasm, the album he had been crafting with her, vanished with his departure. She was forced to start over entirely, eventually releasing Necessary Roughness in June 1997. But by then, the momentum was gone. Without Dre's production, without the label's full backing, and with Death Row in chaos, the album never stood a chance of living up to its potential. When Necessary Roughness finally dropped in June 1997, the Lady of Rage hoped it would be her long-awaited breakthrough. Instead, it felt like the beginning of the end. She later told Rap Talk that Death Row Records did virtually nothing to promote or market the project. There were no big campaigns, no heavy radio pushes, no videos to keep her in the spotlight. In her own words, the album was set up to fail. For an artist who had been groomed to follow in the footsteps of Dre and Snoop, it was devastating. Her mentor, Dr. Dre, was already gone from the label, and his absence was a wound that never fully healed. Rage admitted that without his guidance, she felt lost. She wanted to leave Death Row too, but the label refused to release her from her contract. Meanwhile, other artists were reaching out, eager to collaborate with her, proof that her talent was still respected across the industry. But Death Row's grip was tight. If Suge Knight or the label had a problem with another artist, Rage was forbidden from working with them. Frustrated, she vented publicly, "Whatever beef they had was between them all. Don't hold me back, let me do my thing." Even Dre, the man who had once championed her, pulled back. He invited her to contribute to his 1999 comeback album, 2001, but each time Rage showed up at the studio, she was stalled, redirected, or given excuses. Later, she would learn why. "I found out. I don't know how true it is, but I found out that Dre just didn't want to deal with any problems because I was still signed to Death Row." Once again, label politics silenced her voice. While she waited for her contract to expire, Rage turned her attention to acting. She appeared in the comedy Next Friday and on The Steve Harvey Show, roles that kept her visible but didn't satisfy her creatively. She enjoyed the experience but admitted she worried about being typecast as the tough big girl, a stereotype that shadowed her stage persona. By the early 2000s, she was finally free from Death Row's hold. Around 2003, she experimented with new opportunities, working again with Snoop and even drawing interest from Shaquille O'Neal, who wanted to sign her to a label he was backing. But nothing solid came from those discussions. Rage eventually signed with Snoop's wife, Shantae Broaddus, under Boss Lady Entertainment. By 2007, she was actively shopping around a new album titled Verbal Abuse, hoping to secure a deal that would restore her music career. Mixtapes came and went, flashes of her talent reminding fans of her potential, but her second studio album never materialized. In 2011, she reunited with Kurupt, Daz, and RBX to form the supergroup Inmates, releasing the single Tragical and a mixtape titled Stay of Execution. It was a powerful reminder of her roots, but it never achieved mainstream traction. Just as she was finding her footing again, life delivered another cruel setback. In 2017, while attending the Essence Festival, Rage suddenly blacked out inside her hotel and collapsed face-first into the front desk. The fall fractured her eye socket and nose, leaving her with 9 stitches and 6 days in the hospital. Doctors initially struggled to pin down the cause. She was given diagnoses ranging from pneumonia to lupus to sarcoidosis as her health continued to decline. The uncertainty was terrifying. During her recovery, she received an overwhelming wave of support from fans and fellow artists, a reminder that her contributions to hip-hop had not been forgotten. Eventually, the truth came out. According to Rock the Bells, the official diagnosis was idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, a serious, progressive lung disease. With mounting medical bills, Rage turned to her supporters, setting up a GoFundMe campaign with a goal of $150,000 to cover her expenses. By 2018, veteran MC and actress The Lady of Rage was facing a battle far different from the music industry struggles that had defined much of her career. This time, it was her health that was under attack. In an Instagram post dated August 4th, she opened up to the public about the pain, uncertainty, and setbacks that had plagued her since the previous year. It was a rare glimpse into the private life of the Farmville, Virginia native who had always preferred to keep personal matters out of the spotlight. She revealed that since September 2017, she had been in and out of doctors' offices and hospitals for what initially seemed like a minor issue, shortness of breath. But what followed was far from simple. Within that time, I've been hospitalized 5 times, Rage wrote, explaining that her condition had become a frightening cycle of unanswered questions. Doctors struggled to pin down exactly what was wrong. First came a diagnosis of pneumonia, then the possibility of pneumonitis. Other specialists suggested lupus, sarcoidosis, or even depression, one even prescribing Prozac as if her symptoms were psychological. At various points, fibromyalgia, Sjögren's syndrome, and idiopathic interstitial lung disease with fibrosis were all floated as possibilities. The constant changes only deepened her frustration and anxiety. As if the uncertainty wasn't enough, a terrifying incident occurred just weeks before her post. On July 6, 2018, Rage was preparing for what should have been a career milestone, her first performance at the Essence Festival. Excited and ready to take the stage, she checked into her hotel, but almost instantly, something felt wrong. "I was cool when I walked in," she later recalled. "By the time I got to the counter, I knew something was wrong. I asked for some water, and the next thing I know, I'm hearing someone say, 'Don't move and don't touch your eye.'" She had blacked out, her third episode of syncope or sudden fainting. But this time it was the most damaging. She collapsed face first into a cast iron frame at the front desk, suffering serious facial injuries. The fall left her with 9 stitches, a fractured eye orbit, and a broken nose. Despite the trauma, doctors remained baffled. Tests came back inconclusive. Besides the fibrosis in her lungs, nothing concrete explained why her body was shutting down. One hospital staff member even called her a medical mystery. Rage admitted that the lack of answers left her unsettled. "I expect and need something more concrete," she wrote, making it clear that the search for a proper diagnosis and treatment was far from over. The post was raw and vulnerable, but it also showed her resilience. She asked fans for continued prayers and well wishes, confessing that sharing her struggles publicly was a major step for someone naturally private. The outpouring of love reminded her she wasn't alone, even in her darkest moments. Despite the illness, Rage proved her resilience once again. She returned to the stage, continued to perform, and took on new acting roles, including an appearance in the 2021 film Judas and the Black Messiah. Looking back, Rage has chosen not to harbor resentment. She has said she holds no ill will toward anyone, not even Suge Knight. In her view, Death Row, for all its chaos, gave her the chance to live out her dream, even if only briefly. That dream may not have unfolded as the world expected, but her legacy endures. On February 9, 2022, when Snoop Dogg announced he had purchased Death Row Records, fans immediately speculated whether Rage might finally be welcomed back into the fold. Some even imagined her reappearing on the biggest stage of all, the Super Bowl halftime show. Whether or not another studio album ever comes, one fact remains. The Lady of Rage was and still is a pivotal figure in West Coast rap. In an era dominated by men, she stood tall, her afro puffs a crown of defiance, her voice a reminder that women in hip-hop could hold their own against anyone. Most recently, in 2024, Robin, the Lady of Rage Allen, reminded the world that her talents extended far beyond the mic. Known first as a formidable rapper with Death Row Records and later as a steady presence in film and television, she stepped into one of her most unexpected roles yet, portraying Miss Cleo in the Lifetime biopic Miss Cleo, Her Rise and Fall. The film, which premiered on August 10, 2024, revisited the life of the woman who became a cultural phenomenon in the late 90s and early 2000s through her psychic hotline commercials. Rage, now also an established actress, joined ATL Live and V103's The Big Tigger Morning Show to discuss how the project came together and what it meant to embody such a recognizable figure. The opportunity came in an unusual way. While working on another production, A Christmas Prayer, producer Jamie McCoy approached her with a surprising revelation. The role she had just played, McCoy explained, had essentially been an audition for Miss Cleo. Rage admitted that at first she didn't even process what was happening. "I was just standing there like, because I wasn't processing it," she recalled. Having been let down by the industry before, she had trained herself not to get too excited about opportunities until they were real. This time, however, everything began to fall into place. When she finally received the script, the reality hit her. She was going to play Miss Cleo. Sitting down with veteran actor Tim Reed, a star she had once watched on WKRP in Cincinnati, made the experience even more concrete. Like the more it went into it, it just became real like, "Okay, this is really happening. Get it together," she admitted. To prepare, Rage immersed herself in Miss Cleo's world. Since the Psychic Network personality had passed away in 2016, the only resources left were recordings and interviews. Rage studied her infomercials, old YouTube footage, and archived appearances, focusing intently on mastering the Jamaican accent and capturing the cadence that had made Miss Cleo unforgettable to a generation of late-night television viewers. Her portrayal wasn't just about mimicry. It was about bringing empathy to a woman whose public rise and fall had been marked by both fame and scandal. Rage acknowledged that stepping into Cleo's character required her to balance humor, charisma, and vulnerability. Beyond her acting, Rage also fielded questions about her music career and her silence on the controversies surrounding Tupac's death. She revealed that while she still loves music and hasn't ruled out new material, she has chosen carefully when and how to speak publicly, noting that years of letdowns have taught her the value of patience and discernment. For fans, seeing the Lady of Rage return in such a high-profile role was a reminder of her resilience. Nearly 3 decades after Afro Puffs made her a household name in hip-hop, she continues to reinvent herself, proving that her story is far from over. The Lady of Rage's journey is one of talent, resilience, and heartbreak, a reminder of how even the brightest stars can be dimmed by industry politics, broken promises, and personal battles. Yet through it all, she remains a symbol of strength, still standing tall with her voice, her presence, and her legacy intact. What do you think? Was Rage unfairly sidelined by death row? Or was it simply the wrong time for her career to flourish? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you never miss more stories like this.